I'll never forget that night. The family dinner had been going well until dessert arrived. Then my sister Ivy stood up, her wine glass trembling in her hand as she looked directly at me and the man sitting beside me. Her voice cut through the room like a knife. "You'll never find true love, not with someone like him. He's impossible for you, Vanessa." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face burn with embarrassment as every family member at the table turned to stare. My boyfriend Tyler squeezed my hand under the table, but I could feel his tension too. The silence that followed was deafening. Nobody defended me. Nobody told Ivy she was wrong. They just sat there, looking uncomfortable, as if they secretly agreed with her cruel assessment. In that moment, I felt completely betrayed and utterly alone. My own sister had just humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. But instead of breaking down like she probably expected, something powerful shifted inside me. A determination I'd never felt before began to burn in my chest. My name is Vanessa, and I'm 26 years old. I've always been the quiet one in my family, the peacekeeper who avoided confrontation at all costs. But sitting there at that dinner table, watching Ivy's satisfied smirk as she destroyed my happiness, I realized I was done being silent. Tyler and I had been together for 8 months, and I loved him more than I'd ever loved anyone. He was kind, funny, ambitious, and treated me like I was the most precious thing in his world. But Ivy had never approved of him. She thought he wasn't good enough for our family because he worked as a mechanic instead of having a college degree. She'd made snide comments before, but this public humiliation was too much. As I looked around the table at my parents, my aunt, my cousins, all avoiding eye contact, I made a silent vow. I was going to prove Ivy wrong about everything. I was going to build a life so beautiful, so successful, so full of love that she'd have to eat her words. And I was going to do it without needing anyone's approval, especially not hers. The next morning, I woke up with Ivy's words still echoing in my head. The pain was raw and fresh, but underneath it was something else. A fierce determination I'd never felt before. I couldn't change what happened at dinner, but I could control what happened next. I decided to focus on building my life exactly the way I wanted it. First, I threw myself into my career as a graphic designer. I'd been playing it safe at my current job, but now I started taking on freelance projects in the evenings and weekends. I researched new skills, took online courses, and began building a portfolio that showcased my real talents. Tyler was incredibly supportive, bringing me coffee during late-night work sessions and celebrating every small victory with me. He never once made me feel guilty for prioritizing my goals. Instead of letting Ivy's criticism tear us apart, it seemed to make us stronger. We talked more openly about our dreams and fears. We supported each other in ways I'd never experienced before. By the end of the first week after the dinner, I already felt different. More focused, more determined, more sure of what I wanted from life. Even though I was moving forward, Ivy's voice haunted me. Every time I made a decision, I could hear her telling me I wasn't good enough, that Tyler wasn't good enough, that we'd never make it. The doubt crept in during quiet moments, making me question everything. Was she right? Was I deluding myself about our relationship? Was I settling for less than I deserved? But then I'd look at Tyler, see how he supported my dreams and believed in me unconditionally, and I knew Ivy was wrong. Her words became fuel for my determination rather than reasons to give up. Every time I felt uncertain, I reminded myself of what she'd said, and it motivated me to prove her wrong even more. I started keeping a journal where I wrote down my goals and tracked my progress. Seeing my achievements on paper helped silence the negative voice in my head. I was building evidence of my worth, one small success at a time. The doubt was still there, but it was getting smaller each day, drowned out by the growing confidence in my abilities and the strength of my relationship with Tyler. 3 weeks later, I saw Ivy at our cousin's birthday party. She approached me with that same fake smile I'd grown to hate, looking me up and down like she was searching for signs of failure. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "Are you still with... what's his name? Tyler?" The way she said his name made it sound like something dirty. I felt the old familiar anger rise in my chest, but this time I was ready for her. I smiled back just as sweetly and told her that Tyler and I were doing wonderfully. I mentioned my new freelance clients and the raise I'd gotten at work. The cold look that flickered across her eyes told me she wasn't pleased to hear about my success. She tried to make a subtle dig about Tyler not being ambitious enough for someone with my potential, but I didn't take the bait. I simply said that true ambition wasn't measured by job titles, but by how well someone treated the people they loved. Then I excused myself and walked away, leaving her standing there looking frustrated. It felt like a small victory, but an important one. But Ivy wasn't done with me yet. Over the next few months, she started spreading rumors about my relationship throughout our extended family. She told our aunt that I was settling for Tyler because I was afraid of being alone. She suggested to our cousins that he was only with me because I had a good job and could support him financially. She even told my mother that she was worried about my judgment and that maybe the family should intervene before I made a terrible mistake. At first, hearing these rumors secondhand stung deeply. It hurt to know that people I loved were discussing my private life and potentially believing Ivy's lies. But as the whispers continued, I found myself caring less and less about what they thought. The more Ivy tried to destroy my happiness, the more determined I became to protect it. I started distancing myself from family members who seemed to buy into her narrative. If they couldn't see Tyler for the wonderful man he was, and if they couldn't support my choices, then maybe they didn't deserve to be part of my life. It was a painful realization, but also a liberating one. Despite the family drama swirling around us, I kept my head high. Family gatherings became tense affairs where I could feel the undercurrent of doubt that Ivy had planted in everyone's minds. Some relatives would give Tyler awkward looks or ask him pointed questions about his plans for the future. Others would pull me aside to express their concerns about my relationship choices. But I refused to let their judgment drag me down. Every step forward in my career felt like another victory against Ivy's predictions. I landed a major client that doubled my freelance income. Tyler got promoted to supervisor at his shop and started taking business classes at the community college. We were both growing and supporting each other's dreams. During family events, I made sure to highlight our successes without being boastful about it. I wanted them to see that we were thriving despite their lack of support. Tyler handled the family tension with incredible grace, never losing his temper or saying anything disrespectful, even when the comments were clearly meant to provoke him. His calm strength in those situations made me love him even more. 6 months after that terrible dinner, Ivy cornered me at another family gathering. This time she accused me of being selfish and putting my relationship above my family responsibilities. She said I was neglecting my role as the responsible daughter by choosing someone who couldn't provide for me properly. It was the same manipulative script she'd always used to make me feel guilty for living my own life. But I wasn't the same person who had sat silently through her public humiliation months before. I looked her straight in the eye and told her that I was done living my life according to her expectations. I said that my happiness wasn't up for family committee vote, and that Tyler made me happier than I'd ever been. I told her that real family members support each other's joy instead of trying to tear it down. She tried to interrupt, but I kept talking. I said that if she couldn't be happy for me, then maybe we needed to take a break from each other. The shocked look on her face was worth all the anxiety I'd felt building up to that conversation. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to Ivy completely, and it felt incredible. To my complete surprise, my uncle pulled me aside after that confrontation with Ivy. He told me he'd been watching the family dynamics for months and that he didn't agree with how Ivy had been treating me. He said Tyler seemed like a good man who clearly loved me, and that Ivy's behavior was out of line. Hearing someone in my family actually validate my feelings was overwhelming. I almost cried right there in his kitchen. He told me that not everyone believed Ivy's rumors, and that some family members were starting to see through her manipulation. He encouraged me to keep following my heart and not let anyone else's opinions derail my happiness. It was the first time in months that I felt like I had an ally in my family. His support gave me strength and reminded me that not everyone was against me. Maybe some family members were just afraid to speak up against Ivy's strong personality. Knowing that at least one person saw the truth made all the difference in how I felt about upcoming family events. I wasn't completely alone after all. Ivy escalated her campaign against my relationship, but this time she made a crucial mistake. She actually approached Tyler directly, trying to plant seeds of doubt in his mind about me. She told him I was too focused on my career and that I was losing sight of what really mattered in life. She suggested that I was using him as a placeholder until someone better came along. She even hinted that my family would never truly accept him. What she didn't count on was Tyler telling me about the conversation immediately. Instead of driving us apart, her manipulation attempt brought us closer together. We talked openly about everything she'd said, and Tyler reassured me that he saw right through her tactics. He told me that anyone who knew me could see how genuine and loving I was. We decided that night that we wouldn't let Ivy's toxicity poison our relationship anymore. We made a pact to be completely honest with each other about any doubts or concerns, and to always talk through problems instead of letting outside influences create wedges between us. Her attempt to break us up had actually strengthened our bond in ways I never expected. Something interesting started happening as Ivy ramped up her efforts to tear me down. The more aggressive and obvious her manipulation became, the more people began to see through it. Family members who had initially seemed swayed by her rumors started questioning her motives. They noticed how she always managed to bring up negative comments about Tyler and me, how she seemed to take pleasure in creating drama. My cousin mentioned that Ivy's constant criticism was getting exhausting to listen to. My mother started defending me when Ivy made her usual snide remarks. Even family friends began commenting on how happy I looked and what a nice couple Tyler and I made. Ivy's influence, which had once felt overwhelming and inescapable, was starting to crack. People were beginning to see her behavior for what it really was: jealousy and control masquerading as concern. The weight of her disapproval, which had felt so heavy for so long, was finally starting to lift. I realized that I'd given her power over my life that she'd never actually deserved. Her opinions were just that: opinions. They didn't have to define my reality or my choices. As my first year with Tyler approached, I felt like I was becoming the person I was always meant to be. The constant stress of trying to please Ivy and gain my family's approval had been holding me back in ways I'd never realized. Without that weight, I was flourishing. My freelance business was thriving to the point where I was considering leaving my day job to work for myself full-time. Tyler and I had moved in together, and our relationship felt stronger than ever. We'd learned to communicate through conflict, support each other's dreams, and create our own little world separate from family drama. I wasn't afraid of Ivy anymore. Her disapproval, which had once felt like a death sentence, now seemed irrelevant to my actual happiness. I'd found my strength and my voice. I was making decisions based on what felt right for me, not what would avoid criticism from others. The transformation was so complete that looking back, I barely recognized the insecure woman who had sat silently through that humiliating dinner a year ago. I'd grown into someone I was truly proud to be. When Ivy announced her engagement and invited me to her party, my first instinct was to decline. The thought of spending an evening pretending to celebrate her happiness while she'd spent so much energy trying to destroy mine felt hypocritical. But I decided to go anyway, not for her sake, but to prove to myself that I was completely free from her influence. The night of the party, I wore my favorite dress and brought Tyler as my date. Ivy's attempts to get under my skin were almost comical in their transparency. She made pointed comments about how some people rush into relationships while others take time to find the right person. She asked Tyler invasive questions about his future plans in front of her fiancé's wealthy family. She even made a toast about the importance of choosing partners who could elevate each other. But none of it affected me the way it would have a year earlier. I smiled, chatted politely with other guests, and left early without any dramatic confrontations. As we walked to our car, Tyler commented on how poised I'd been despite her obvious attempts to provoke me. I realized that Ivy no longer had the power to hurt me because I'd stopped giving her that power. Ivy's perfect world started showing cracks not long after her engagement party. Her fiancé's family, who had initially been charmed by her sweet act, began to see her manipulative side. She'd made the mistake of trying to control their family dynamics the same way she'd controlled ours for years. Her future mother-in-law started questioning her character after Ivy made several inappropriate comments about other family members. Even her fiancé began to notice how she spoke about people behind their backs, including her own family. The very behaviors that had made her feel powerful in our family were backfiring spectacularly in her new environment. Meanwhile, Tyler and I were planning our own engagement. He'd been secretly saving for months to buy me a ring, and my business was successful enough that we could start thinking about buying a house together. While Ivy was discovering that her manipulation tactics didn't work on everyone, I was building a life based on mutual respect and genuine love. The contrast between our situations wasn't lost on me. She'd spent so much energy trying to tear down my happiness that she'd forgotten to build real happiness for herself. The breaking point came at our grandfather's birthday party. Ivy had been drinking, and her usual filter completely disappeared. She made increasingly nasty comments throughout the evening, not just about Tyler and me, but about everyone at the party. She criticized our cousin's career choices, made rude remarks about our aunt's new boyfriend, and even snapped at our elderly grandfather when he asked her to help serve cake. The family watched in shocked silence as she revealed her true nature without any pretense of sweetness or concern. When she finally turned her attention to Tyler and me, launching into a drunken tirade about my poor life choices, something unexpected happened. Multiple family members immediately told her to stop. My mother firmly said that Ivy's behavior was unacceptable. My uncle told her she owed us an apology. Even our usually quiet cousin spoke up to defend us. For the first time in our entire lives, the family united against Ivy's cruelty instead of enabling it. She was so shocked by the pushback that she actually fell silent. I didn't need to say a word in my own defense. The truth had finally spoken for itself. 6 months later, Tyler proposed to me in our favorite restaurant, the same place where we'd had our first date. It was perfect, intimate, personal, and completely us. We planned a small wedding ceremony surrounded only by people who genuinely supported our relationship. The guest list was smaller than I'd originally imagined, but it was filled with people who truly loved us. Ivy didn't show up, which was no surprise since we'd barely spoken since grandfather's party. But I realized I didn't care about her absence. This was my day, not hers, and I was finally living the life I'd worked so hard to create. My uncle walked me down the aisle since my father had sided with Ivy in the family drama. Tyler looked handsome in his suit, and the joy on his face when he saw me made everything we'd been through worthwhile. Our vows focused on the strength we'd found together and the future we were building. As I looked out at our small group of supporters, I felt overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. Every challenge had made me stronger, and every obstacle had clarified what really mattered to me. A few months after our wedding, Ivy reached out wanting to repair our relationship. She claimed she'd been going through a difficult time and that stress had made her behave badly. She wanted to meet for coffee to talk things through and start fresh. But I'd grown too much to fall back into old patterns. I politely declined her invitation and told her that I was happy with my life as it was. I explained that I didn't need her validation or approval anymore, and that our relationship had become too toxic for me to maintain. I wished her well but made it clear that I was moving forward without her in my life. She tried to guilt me by saying family should forgive each other, but I stood firm in my decision. Forgiveness didn't mean I had to subject myself to ongoing manipulation and criticism. I'd learned that some relationships are too damaged to repair, and that it's okay to prioritize my own mental health and happiness. Setting that boundary felt scary but also incredibly freeing. I was finally putting my own well-being first instead of trying to keep peace at any cost. Ivy's life continued to unravel in ways I heard about through family gossip. Her engagement ended when her fiancé finally saw through her manipulative behavior. She tried to control every aspect of their relationship and his family dynamics, and he'd eventually decided he couldn't marry someone so toxic. She struggled to maintain friendships because her pattern of criticism and control pushed people away. Even her relationship with our parents became strained as they started recognizing the behavior patterns that family members had been pointing out for years. While I felt sad that things had worked out so poorly for her, I also felt validated that the problems hadn't been in my imagination. Her inability to maintain healthy relationships with anyone proved that the issue had never been with Tyler or me. It was painful to watch my sister's life fall apart, but it also confirmed that I'd made the right choice in distancing myself from her toxicity. Sometimes people have to face the consequences of their actions before they can change, and Ivy was finally experiencing the natural results of years of manipulative behavior. Meanwhile, my life was everything I dreamed it could be. My design business had grown to the point where I was turning down clients because I was so busy. Tyler had been promoted again and was considering opening his own auto repair shop. We'd bought a beautiful little house with a garden where I could work on my art projects. More importantly, we'd created a peaceful life together free from the drama that had once consumed so much of my energy. I no longer had to worry about Ivy's opinions or anyone else's approval. I was proud of the woman I'd become and the relationship I'd built. Our marriage was strong because we'd learned to communicate openly and support each other through challenges. We had a network of friends who genuinely cared about our happiness. Family gatherings were more peaceful now that Ivy rarely attended, and the relatives who did come seemed more relaxed and authentic. I'd found the love and success that Ivy claimed I'd never have, but more importantly, I'd found peace with myself and confidence in my own judgment. When Ivy tried reaching out again a year later, I felt completely indifferent to her attempts at reconciliation. The pain and anger I'd once felt had been replaced by simple disinterest. She wasn't a part of my world anymore, and I had no desire to change that. Her messages went unanswered because I had nothing left to say to her. I'd healed from the wounds she'd inflicted and moved on to a life that didn't include her toxicity. The woman who had once held so much power over my emotions and decisions was now irrelevant to my happiness. I'd built something beautiful without her approval or support, exactly as I'd promised myself I would. Tyler and I were discussing starting a family, and the idea of bringing children into our peaceful, loving environment filled me with joy. I couldn't imagine wanting to expose future children to Ivy's criticism and manipulation. Sometimes healing means accepting that certain people can't be part of your story anymore, and I was completely at peace with that decision. Her absence had actually improved the quality of my life in every measurable way. The peace I'd found in my life was profound and complete. I no longer woke up worrying about family drama or wondering what criticism might be coming my way. My days were filled with work I loved, a marriage that brought me joy, and friendships based on mutual respect and support. I'd created exactly the life I wanted, free from the toxic expectations and judgments that had once held me back. The contrast between my current peace and the anxiety I'd lived with for years was striking. I could finally see how much energy I'd wasted trying to please someone who was determined to be displeased with my choices. That energy was now directed toward positive goals and genuine relationships. Tyler and I had developed traditions and routines that brought us happiness. We took weekend trips, tried new restaurants, supported each other's hobbies, and built a home that reflected our shared values. The life we'd created together was better than anything I could have imagined when Ivy was telling me I'd never find true love. I'd not only found love but built a foundation of mutual respect and genuine partnership that grew stronger every day. Looking back on my journey, I was amazed by how much I'd grown and changed. The insecure woman who had sat silently through Ivy's public humiliation felt like a completely different person. I'd built a successful business, a strong marriage, and most importantly, an unshakable confidence in my own worth and judgment. Ivy's cruel prediction about my inability to find true love seemed laughable now. Not only had I found love, but I'd found the kind of deep partnership that many people spend their entire lives searching for. Tyler and I understood each other in ways that went beyond surface attraction or convenience. We'd weathered external pressure together and emerged stronger because of it. The career success I'd achieved was also far beyond what I'd thought possible when I was trying to please everyone else. Focusing on my own goals instead of managing family drama had freed up incredible amounts of creative energy. Every challenge I'd faced had taught me something valuable about myself and strengthened my ability to handle future difficulties. I'd become the woman I was always meant to be. In the end, Ivy had given me an unexpected gift through her cruelty. Her attempts to destroy my happiness had actually forced me to build something much stronger and more authentic than what I'd had before. If she hadn't pushed me to my breaking point, I might never have found the courage to stand up for myself and create the life I truly wanted. Her prediction about my inability to find love had been spectacularly wrong, but more than that, it had motivated me to prove that I was capable of so much more than she'd ever believed. The success Tyler and I had achieved together was sweeter because we'd earned it despite opposition rather than because of support. We'd chosen each other every day, even when it would have been easier to give up and conform to other people's expectations. My business success felt more meaningful because I'd built it on my own terms rather than trying to impress anyone else. Ivy's ultimate revenge had been her own isolation and unhappiness, brought about by her inability to celebrate other people's joy. My ultimate victory was the peace and fulfillment I'd found by refusing to let her define my worth or limit my possibilities. As I planned for the future, I felt excited about all the possibilities ahead of me. Tyler and I were stronger than ever, our business goals were on track, and we were ready to start thinking about expanding our family. The foundation we'd built together could support whatever dreams we wanted to pursue next. I'd learned to trust my own instincts and make decisions based on what felt right for our life together rather than what might avoid criticism from others. The skills I'd developed in standing up for myself and maintaining healthy boundaries would serve me well in whatever challenges lay ahead. I was no longer the person who needed everyone's approval to feel secure in my choices. I'd become someone who could evaluate situations clearly and act according to my own values and goals. The future felt bright and full of potential because I was approaching it from a position of strength and self-knowledge rather than fear and insecurity. Whatever obstacles might come, I was confident that Tyler and I could handle them together. The woman who had once been devastated by her sister's cruel words was now excited about writing the next chapter of her own story. Today, I'm living the life I dreamed of when Ivy told me I'd never find true love. Tyler and I celebrated our second wedding anniversary last month, and our love has only grown deeper and stronger. My design business is more successful than I ever imagined it could be when I first started taking freelance projects to prove my worth. We're expecting our first child, and I'm excited to raise a family in the peaceful, supportive environment we've created together. Ivy is no longer part of my story in any meaningful way. The last I heard, she was still struggling with relationships and seemed unable to find the happiness that comes from genuine connection rather than control. I don't wish her ill, but I also don't feel any obligation to include her toxicity in my life. The family members who supported her manipulation of me have learned to respect the boundaries I've set. Those who couldn't accept my choices have naturally faded from my regular life. The people who remain in my circle are those who celebrate my happiness rather than trying to diminish it. I proved Ivy wrong about everything, but more importantly, I proved to myself that I was capable of creating the life I wanted despite opposition and criticism. True love, success, and happiness came when I stopped seeking approval and started believing in myself.